The industrial floor buffer struck the metal table leg with a sharp crack that echoed through the medical training bay like a gunshot. Jessica Brennan froze for half a second, muscle memory from 12 years of combat, then continued pushing the machine across the blood-stained tile. Not real blood, simulation gel. Cherry red corn syrup that looked nothing like the real thing but satisfied training requirements. 0630 hours, June 2024, Fort Bragg Special Operations Training Facility. She was 34 years old, 5'5", 132 pounds of wiry muscle hidden beneath contractor coveralls. Brown hair pulled tight in a practical ponytail. Hazel eyes with permanent dark circles that no amount of sleep would fix. Her hands, scarred across the knuckles, chemical-stained between the fingers, guided the buffer around expensive trauma mannequins worth more than her monthly paycheck. 23 students filtered into the bay. Young faces, clean uniforms, nervous energy. Some Army, some Navy, one Air Force pararescue trainee. All here for advanced tactical combat casualty training. All about to learn from someone who'd never actually seen what these procedures looked like when they failed. Jessica kept her head down, worked efficiently. Invisible. That was the goal. Had been for 8 months. The door banged open. Major Derek Hoffman entered, carrying a travel mug of coffee, 6'1" frame filling the doorway. Blonde crew cut, blue eyes, athletic build that came from gym work rather than carrying casualties. Spotless training uniform with instructor tab. 31 years old with 8 years of service and 3 safe deployments, where the worst injury he'd treated was a training accident. His eyes landed on Jessica. Janitors here early, eager to clean up after real warriors? The buffer's motor hummed. Jessica said nothing, angled around a table of airway equipment. Laughter rippled through the students. 8 phones lifted, recording, always recording. Staff Sergeant Travis Gillespie followed Hoffman inside. Stocky build, tribal tattoo sleeve visible below his rolled sleeve. 28, 6 years service, 2 deployments. He'd failed the Special Operations Combat Medic course once already. That failure lived in him like a splinter. Thinks she even knows what a tourniquet is? Gillespie's voice carried across the bay. More laughter. 12 phones now. Petty Officer First Class Ryan Mitchell joined them. Red hair and freckles, lean frame. 26, 5 years Navy, 1 deployment on a ship where the most exciting medical emergency was a galley fire. Maybe she thinks trauma care means mopping up the mess afterward. The students ate it up. 17 people laughing at a woman pushing a floor buffer. Jessica continued working. She moved around the medical equipment with practiced efficiency. Too practiced. She corrected the placement of an improperly stored airway kit without looking at it, muscle memory guiding her hands. She straightened IV supplies that had been left in random order, arranging them by gauge size and application sequence. From the instructor platform 30 feet away, Command Sergeant Major Robert Vance watched. 48 years old, graying hair, weathered face with a scar along his jaw from Mogadishu in '93. 27 years of service, most of it as an 18D Special Forces medical sergeant. Now administrative duty, shepherding the next generation through training he'd written portions of. He noticed things others missed. The way the contractor moved wasn't the shuffle of someone used to cleaning floors. It was the efficient gait of someone who'd covered ground under fire. Her hands didn't fumble with medical equipment. They organized it with the casual competence of someone who'd used it hundreds of times. Hoffman set his coffee down, surveyed his domain. All right, ladies and gentlemen, pop quiz this morning. High-fidelity trauma scenarios. Even the janitor can watch. Might learn the difference between a mop and a chest seal. Jessica's jaw tightened. 2 millimeters. Vance saw it from across the room. She reached up to clean a high shelf. Her sleeve rode up 3 inches. Burn scars covered her left forearm. Not the clean lines of a cooking accident, but the chaotic pattern of thermal blast, IED signature. Vance had seen those scars on 100 soldiers. He leaned forward 15 degrees. Hoffman walked to the primary training mannequin, expensive model with realistic tissue simulation and programmable vital signs. Today, we're focusing on hemorrhage control and airway management. Commander Brennan, front and center. A student jogged forward. Different Brennan, male, no relation. Jessica continued cleaning near the back wall. She was running a cloth over supply cabinets, but her eyes tracked Hoffman's hands as he demonstrated tourniquet application on the mannequin. He placed it on the upper thigh, 2 inches too low for effective control of femoral artery hemorrhage in a real casualty with muscle contraction and arterial spasm. It would work fine on silicone. Jessica's hands stopped moving for 1 second. Her eyes stayed on the tourniquet. Her jaw muscles flexed. Next, Mitchell noticed her looking. "You got a medical opinion, janitor?" Every head turned. 23 students, 3 instructors, 1 sergeant major. All eyes on the woman holding a cleaning cloth. Jessica met Mitchell's gaze for 2 seconds. "No, sir." Her voice was quiet, controlled. The kind of control that came from years of keeping emotions locked down when lives depended on clear thinking. But her eyes stayed on that tourniquet. Gillespie grinned. "She probably thinks it goes on the ankle." The room laughed. 19 phones recording now. Hoffman continued his demonstration, applying a chest seal to the mannequin's torso. His technique was textbook for training purposes, but incomplete. He didn't burp the seal, didn't lift the edge to release trapped air before securing it fully. On a real casualty with tension pneumothorax, that oversight would create deadly pressure. Jessica turned back to her cleaning. Her hands moved automatically, but her attention never left the instruction. Gillespie grabbed a training IV kit, knocked it off the table. Supplies scattered across the floor Jessica had just cleaned. 40 pounds of equipment, Salin bags, catheter kits, administration sets. Oops. Gillespie's smile was thin. "Better get that cleaned up. That's your specialty, right?" The room watched, waited, testing. Jessica set down her cloth, knelt, began gathering supplies without complaint. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking each item for damage, organizing by type and size as she collected them. Corporal Emma Hayes, 23, 3 years service, moved to help. "Here, let me." Corporal Hayes, back in formation. Hoffman's voice cut across the bay. "She's paid to clean. Let her do her job." Hayes hesitated, made eye contact with Jessica for 1 second. Jessica gave a tiny headshake. Hayes returned to the formation. Jessica continued cleaning. 47 minutes until everything they thought they knew would shatter. But right now, at 06:37 hours on a Tuesday morning in June, she was just the janitor. Invisible, underestimated, exactly where she'd chosen to be. The supplies went back into their designated containers. Jessica stood, carried the training kit to the equipment table. 23 students had returned to their positions around the trauma mannequins. Hoffman was setting up the morning assessment scenarios. Mitchell leaned against a supply cabinet, scrolling through his phone. "You know what's funny? Navy Corpsman School is 6 months of intensive training. Most civilian EMTs take 2 years to get fully certified." He looked at Jessica. "But anyone can push a mop, right?" Gillespie laughed, joined him at the cabinet. "Hell, I spent 18 months trying to pass SOCM qualification. Failed the first time because I couldn't handle the stress scenarios." His voice carried an edge. "But sure, cleaning trauma bays is basically the same thing." Jessica moved to the next section of the room, organizing medical supplies that had been left scattered after the previous night's training. Her hands worked automatically, gauze pads sorted by size, IV catheters arranged by gauge, hemostatic agents positioned for quick access. The arrangement wasn't random. It followed the exact protocol for combat medical kit organization, March algorithm sequence, massive hemorrhage, airway, respiration, circulation, hypothermia. Everything positioned for access in order of life-threat priority. Vance watched from his platform. That wasn't cleaning, that was combat loading. Hoffman clapped his hands. "All right, everyone, pair up. You'll be running through trauma assessments. I want to see proper ABCDE protocol. Airway, breathing, circulation, disability, exposure. He gestured to the mannequins. "These are loaded with randomized injury patterns. You won't know what you're treating until you start your assessment." Hayes, paired with another junior medic, approached their assigned mannequin. She pulled on gloves, started her primary survey. Airway clear. Breathing present but labored. Circulation. She reached for the tourniquet kit. Her hands fumbled. The windlass rod slipped. She grabbed it again, tried to thread it through the buckle, failed. Her face flushed. Hoffman walked over. "Problem, Corporal?" "No, sir. Just the angle is different than last time." "The angle is always different. Casualties don't lie down in convenient positions." His voice rose. "In combat, you'll have 30 seconds to get that tourniquet on before your patient bleeds out. You just used 40, and you're not even close." Hayes's hands shook now. She dropped the windlass completely. "Pathetic." Hoffman shook his head. "Maybe you should request a transfer to dental corps. At least teeth don't bleed out." The room went silent. Hayes's eyes glistened, but she blinked hard, fighting it back. Jessica's hands stopped moving. She was arranging cleaning supplies on her cart, spray bottles, cloths, sanitizer. But they weren't random anymore. They were positioned in the exact sequence of a cricothyrotomy procedure. Scalpel equivalent in first position, airway equivalent in second, securing materials in third. Heard. Vance saw it. His spine straightened. Hayes tried again, failed again. Her breath came faster. "Step aside." Hoffman pushed her away from the mannequin. "This is basic skills. If you can't handle a training dummy, you'll kill someone real." Jessica turned away, faced her cleaning cart. Her shoulders were rigid. A student near the door fumbled with an IV bag, the old glass bottle style they used for realistic training. Heavy, expensive. It slipped from his grip. Jessica's hand shot out. She wasn't even looking in that direction. Her arm extended, snatched the bottle from the air 6 inches above the concrete floor. Single-handed catch with perfect weight distribution. 0 wasted motion. The room went silent. Her reaction time, 0.3 seconds. Her movement pattern, combat reflexes, trained through thousands of repetitions. She set the bottle on the nearest table, returned to her cart. 4 seconds of absolute quiet. Then Hoffman laughed. Lucky catch. The tension broke. Students returned to their training. But 7 people were still staring at Jessica. Vance was one of them. Mitchell walked past her cart, glanced down at her supply arrangement. His eyes narrowed. He'd been a corpsman for 5 years. He recognized medical staging when he saw it. "Hey," he pointed at her bottles. "That's a weird way to organize cleaning supplies." Jessica said nothing. She rearranged them randomly, breaking the pattern. Hoffman moved to the center of the bay. "New scenario, mass casualty triage. You've got 5 casualties, limited resources, no backup for 30 minutes. How do you prioritize?" He pointed at Gillespie. "You're senior medic on scene. Walk me through it." Gillespie approached the 5 mannequins Hoffman had arranged. Start with the loudest casualty? They're conscious. That's a good sign." "Wrong." Hoffman's voice cracked like a whip. "The quiet ones are often dying. Airway obstruction, tension pneumothorax. They can't make noise." He turned to the class. "Anyone else?" Hayes raised her hand tentatively. "Check circulation first? Massive hemorrhage is the leading cause of preventable death in combat." "Better, but you're missing the systematic approach." Hoffman walked between the mannequins. "Start triage protocol. Simple triage and rapid treatment. You assess each casualty in 30 seconds or less." Jessica was wiping down a counter 20 feet away. Her cloth moved in circles, but her breathing had changed. Slower, controlled. The kind of breathing someone used to manage stress responses. Hoffman continued. "You check, heck, 3 things. Can they walk? Are they breathing? What's their circulation status?" He pointed at each mannequin. Minimal, delayed, immediate, or expectant. Color-coded tags. He demonstrated on the first mannequin, checking fictional respiration rate, capillary refill. His assessment took 90 seconds. He tagged it immediate. Jessica's cloth stopped moving. Hoffman moved to the second mannequin. His hand placement for the pulse check was wrong. Radial artery position, not brachial. Wouldn't work on a casualty in shock with peripheral vasoconstriction. He'd get a false negative. Jessica's jaw clenched, visible muscle tension. Vance stood up from his chair. He walked down from the platform, moved closer. He'd trained with Rangers in the 90s, deployed with Special Forces medics in the early 2000s. He knew what real experience looked like. The burn pattern on her forearm, the chemical stains on her hands, the way she'd caught that bottle, the way she organized supplies, the way she couldn't watch Hoffman teach procedures wrong. He approached Hoffman during a break between scenarios. Quiet voice. "Commander, you know anything about that contractor?" Hoffman barely glanced at Jessica. "She's janitorial. Why?" "Her movements, the way she handles herself around medical gear." Vance kept his voice low. "That's not someone unfamiliar with this equipment." Hoffman laughed. "She's good at cleaning, Sergeant Major. That's it. I'm telling you, something's not adding up." "With respect, Sergeant Major, you're seeing things." Hoffman turned back to his students. "Age does that, makes you paranoid." Vance's expression hardened, but he said nothing. Returned to his platform. But his eyes stayed on Jessica. Hoffman announced the next evolution. Advanced scenario. Chest trauma with respiratory distress. "I need a volunteer." No hands. "How about our observer?" Hoffman gestured at Jessica. "She's been watching all morning. Let's see if civilians can follow basic instructions." Jessica stopped cleaning, turned slowly, made eye contact. "Or you can leave," Hoffman smiled. "But then we'll all know you were just pretending to understand what we do here." 28 minutes until revelation, but the countdown had started. Jessica set down her cloth, walked toward the training area. Every eye in the room followed her. Before we see what happens next, if you've ever been underestimated because of your job title, you know this feeling. The moment when you have to decide, stay silent or show them who you really are. Drop a comment about a time someone underestimated you. This gets intense. Jessica reached the mannequin, stood beside it, said nothing, waited. Hoffman gestured broadly. Scenario: blast injury, sucking chest wound, respiratory distress. Show us what you do. Jessica looked at the mannequins for 3 seconds. Then she knelt. Jessica's knees touched the training bay floor. Her posture shifted, 15 degrees straighter, shoulders squared. The cleaning lady vanished. Something else emerged. Her hands moved to the mannequin's chest. Primary survey. Head-to-toe systematic assessment. Her fingers traced the simulated wound. Sucking chest wound, upper right thorax. Tension pneumothorax imminent. Hoffman crossed his arms. "You've got 4 minutes. Standard passing time for this scenario is 6 minutes. Expert completion is 4:30. Clock starts now." Jessica said nothing. Her hands continued assessment. She checked airway patency, head tilt, jaw thrust, visual inspection. Clear. Breathing present but compromised. She placed her ear near the mannequin's chest, listening for bilateral breath sounds. "She doesn't even know what she's looking for," Mitchell muttered. Jessica's hand shot to the equipment table. No hesitation. She grabbed the chest seal kit. Not the training version Hoffman had demonstrated earlier. She took the combat version. Israeli bandage integrated with vented seal. Gillespie leaned forward. "That's not the kit we've been practicing with." Jessica tore open the package with one hand. Perfect technique. Her other hand maintained pressure on the wound. She exposed the adhesive, positioned the seal. Then she did something Hoffman hadn't demonstrated. She lifted one edge of the seal, burped it, released trapped air, then secured it fully. Vance stood up completely. "That's field protocol." Jessica moved without pause. Secondary survey, checking for additional injuries. Her hands found the simulated femoral hemorrhage Hoffman had programmed into the mannequin. Massive bleeding, high and inside thigh. She grabbed a tourniquet from the medical kit. CAT, Combat Application Tourniquet, standard issue. Her hands moved with absolute precision. Positioned it high on the thigh, tight against the groin. Threaded the band. Twisted the windlass. 3 full rotations. Secured it. Time to task, 18 seconds. The mannequin simulated bleeding stopped. 11.7 seconds for hemorrhage control. Vance called out. Seal qualification standard is 15 seconds. The room went quiet. Jessica continued. IV access. She palpated for the vein, found it on first attempt. Inserted the 18-gauge catheter. Smooth, professional. Connected the administration set. Squeezed the bag. Flow established. She called out in a clear, authoritative voice. Missed report. Mechanism, blast injury. Injury sustained. Sucking chest wound right thorax. Femoral artery hemorrhage left leg. Signs, respiratory rate 28. Pulse 120 weak and thready. BP estimated 80/40. Treatment, chest seal applied with burping. Tourniquet high and tight. IV access established. Fluid resuscitation initiated. Mitchell's jaw dropped. That's TCC reporting format. Jessica stood, stepped back from the mannequin, made eye contact with Hoffman. Scenario complete. Silence stretched for 11 seconds. Then chaos. How did she? That was perfect. Who the hell? Hoffman's face transitioned from red to white. That was luck. Anyone can follow a checklist if they've seen it demonstrated. Jessica said nothing, just stood there, waiting. Vance checked his stopwatch. Total time, 3 minutes 14 seconds. She beat expert standard by 1 minute 16 seconds. Gillespie shook his head. She's probably EMT certified or something. Took a civilian course. EMTs don't learn TCC protocol, Vance said quietly. That's military-specific training. Hoffman's authority was crumbling. He could feel it. 47 students watching, 7 instructors. Everyone's phone's out now, recording everything. Fine, his voice was too loud. Anyone can handle a single casualty with unlimited time and equipment. Let's see real decision-making under pressure. He moved to the training area, started setting up multiple mannequins. Mass casualty scenario. 5 casualties, different injury patterns. You've got 2 minutes to triage them all using START protocol. Even military medics struggle with this. He arranged 5 mannequins in various positions, programmed each with different vital signs and injury patterns. Time limit, 2 minutes. Begin when ready. Jessica approached the first mannequin, knelt, checked respirations, count of 30, checked radial pulse, present but weak, checked mental status, response to pain. She pulled a red tag from her pocket. Where had she gotten that? And attached it. Immediate. She moved to the second mannequin, checked respirations, 10 per minute, checked pulse, absent radially, repositioned airway, pulse still absent, black tag, expectant. Vance whispered to another instructor. She's making command decisions, recognizing futile care. Third mannequin, respirations 22. Pulse present and strong. Mental status alert. Yellow tag, delayed. Fourth mannequin, walking wounded simulation. Green tag, minimal. Fifth mannequin, respirations 36, pulse present, altered mental status. Red tag, immediate. She stood. Triage complete. 2 immediate, 1 delayed, 1 minimal, 1 expectant. Recommend immediate casualties receive priority intervention, delayed can wait 30 minutes, minimal can self-care, expectant receives comfort measures only. Vance checked his watch. 1 minute 38 seconds. Perfect accuracy on all priority assignments. Hayes gasped audibly. That's faster than the instructors. Hoffman's face had gone completely pale. Who taught you this? What's your certification? Jessica met his eyes. I'm not authorized to discuss my medical background without proper clearance, sir. The way she said sir had changed. It wasn't submissive anymore. It was pointed, professional, military. Mitchell stepped forward. No civilian knows this material. This is military combat medicine. Tactical combat casualty care is restricted training. He pulled out his phone. I'm looking up contractor requirements right now. Jessica remained silent. Her posture hadn't changed. She stood at a relaxed position of attention. Not quite parade rest, but close. The stance of someone comfortable around military authority. Hoffman grabbed her contractor badge from where she'd clipped it to her coveralls. Read it aloud. J. Brennan. Clearance level, top secret SCI with J-Pass flagging. He looked up. Janitors don't have TS-SCI clearance. Someone in admin screwed up the paperwork, Gillespie suggested weakly. Vance descended from his platform. Commander Hoffman, I recommend we verify this individual's credentials through proper channels. I recommend we figure out who the hell she really is, Hoffman shot back. This is a secure training facility. If she's got unauthorized access to classified protocols, I have authorized access. Jessica's voice was quiet but firm. My clearance is valid. Check the system. Mitchell was typing on his phone. Clearance database shows, wait, her file is flagged. Requires O6 authorization to view complete details. What's your full name? Hoffman demanded. Jessica Marie Brennan. Service number. Jessica hesitated. 1 second. 2 seconds. 71638492. Mitchell typed it in. His expression changed. Oh my God. Read it, Hoffman ordered. I can't. It's sealed. I don't have access. Mitchell looked up. It says the file is restricted. Restricted to O6 and above with need to know for compartmentaled operations. The room temperature seemed to drop. Gillespie noticed movement. Jessica's tank top. She'd removed her outer coverall shirt at some point, too warm in the training bay. Her right rib cage was partially visible. Ink marks. He squinted. She's got a tattoo. Coordinates. 33 degrees, 32 minutes north, 69 degrees, 08 minutes east. He read them aloud. Hayes pulled out her phone, typed. Those coordinates are Kandahar Province, Afghanistan. Below the coordinates, Roman numerals. IX.XX.MMXV. Mitchell converted. September 18, 2015. Another student searched the date. Kandahar hospital attack, vehicle-borne IED, multiple casualties. His voice trailed off. Jessica's jaw clenched. She looked away. Wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. The pieces were falling into place. 50 people in the room, all of them realizing simultaneously that they'd made a catastrophic mistake. Hoffman's voice was barely a whisper. Who are you? Someone who shouldn't be here. Jessica turned toward the exit. You're not dismissed, Hoffman said, but his authority was gone. His voice shook. Jessica stopped. Back to him. With respect, sir, you can't dismiss me. I'm not under your command. The doors to the training bay opened. Colonel Patricia Drummond entered, 45 years old, 5'7", commander of the entire facility. 2 military police flanked her. Behind them, base security. Major Hoffman. Drummond's voice carried absolute authority. Step away from the contractor. Hoffman turned. Ma'am, this civilian was impersonating. That civilian outranks you, Major. Silence. Complete. Absolute. Silence. Colonel Drummond stepped fully into the training bay. Her presence commanded immediate attention. Every student straightened unconsciously. Hoffman's face had gone from white to gray. Ma'am, I can explain, Hoffman started. You'll remain silent unless directly addressed, Major. Drummond's eyes swept the room, landed on Jessica. Sergeant Brennan, face me, please. Jessica turned slowly. Her posture shifted again. Parade rest, hands clasped behind her back. Professional, military. The transformation was complete. Ma'am. Jessica's voice was steady. Drummond gestured to Captain Raymond Moss, the base security officer who'd entered with her. Mid-30s, tablet in hand, expression professionally neutral. Captain Moss, pull up contractor file Brennan J 7163. Moss typed on his tablet, waited. His eyebrows rose. Ma'am, the file. Lee is Restricted. I'm getting an access denial. Override with my credentials. O6 authorization. Moss entered Drummond's information. The tablet screen populated with data. His face changed completely. Jesus Christ. Read it, Captain. Everything. Moss cleared his throat. Personnel file. Brennan, Jessica Marie. Service number, 716384992. Rank, Sergeant First Class, E7. Status, medical retirement, March 2023. The room erupted in whispers. Drummond raised one hand. Silence returned. Continue. Military Occupational Specialty, 68W. Special Operations Combat Medic. SOCM qualified. Graduated second in class of 47. Moss scrolled. Service duration, 12 years active duty, United States Army. Hoffman sat down in the nearest chair without permission. Deployments. Drummond's voice was firm. Read them all. Moss continued. 7 total deployments. Afghanistan, 2012. Logar Province. Attached to 3rd Ranger Battalion. 47 casualties treated under fire. 100% survival rate to surgical facility. Hayes was taking notes on her phone, tears streaming down her face. Deployment 2. Helmand Province, Afghanistan, 2013. 78 casualties treated. 3 emergency cricothyrotomies performed under direct enemy fire. Awarded Army Commendation Medal with Valor Device. Gillespie's face had gone pale. Deployment 3. Kandahar, Afghanistan, 2014. 142 casualties over 9 months. Established treatment protocol for IED fragmentation wounds still used today in TCC curriculum. First Purple Heart awarded for shrapnel wounds sustained while treating casualties under fire. Mitchell was no longer smiling. His hands hung at his sides. Deployment 4. Moss paused. Kandahar Province, September 2015. The room went completely silent. Everyone had seen the coordinates tattooed on Jessica's ribs. September 18, 2015. Mass casualty event. Vehicle-borne improvised explosive device at Forward Operating Hospital compound. Sergeant Brennan was off-duty in sleeping quarters 200 meters from blast site. Responded within 60 seconds, despite sustaining concussive injuries and second-degree burns. Jessica's eyes closed briefly. Blast resulted in 8 critically wounded personnel, 4 killed in action immediate. Structural collapse of primary medical facility. Compound came under follow-on small arms attack. Duration 43 minutes. Command ordered evacuation of all non-essential personnel. Sergeant Brennan refused to leave wounded. Vance stood at attention, instinctively. Stunnedly. He'd heard stories about this. Hadn't known names, hadn't known it was her. Moss's voice was quieter now. Sergeant Brennan performed emergency thoracotomy, open chest surgery on Corporal Daniel Walsh under active fire. Manually compressed his heart for 17 minutes until medevac arrived. Treated 8 total casualties while sustaining additional fragmentation wounds and thermal burns. Jessica's hands were trembling now. She clenched them tighter behind her back. 6 casualties survived initial treatment. 2 died during evacuation. Lance Corporal Miguel Rodriguez, femoral artery hemorrhage. Staff Sergeant James Phillips, cardiac arrest 3 minutes from hospital. A tear ran down Jessica's face. She didn't wipe it away. Sergeant Brennan was recommended for the Medal of Honor by her chain of command. Award Board determined evidence threshold wasn't sufficient for MOH, but approved Silver Star with Valor. She was also awarded her second Purple Heart for wounds sustained during this action. Drummond spoke. And what did Sergeant Brennan do when they scheduled her Silver Star ceremony? Moss checked the file. She left Walter Reed Medical Center against medical advice, refused to attend the ceremony. Quote, "I can't stand on a stage and accept a medal when Rodriguez's mother is sitting in the audience." Hoffman's head was in his hands. "Continue with her service record," Drummond ordered. Deployment 5, Syria, 2016. Embedded with Special Operations Task Force. Classification prevents detailed disclosure. Moss scrolled faster. Deployment 6, Afghanistan, 2017 through 2018. Extended deployment 3 times to maintain continuity of care for her unit. Why did she extend? Drummond asked, though she clearly knew the answer. Moss read from the file. Quote from her commander. Quote, SFC Brennan refused rotation because she stated no replacement medic would know her soldiers' medical histories well enough to keep them alive. Hayes was openly crying now. Deployment 7, Afghanistan, 2019. Emergency evacuation after acute PTSD episode triggered by mass casualty event similar to 2015 incident. Diagnosis: complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Survivor's guilt: major depressive disorder. Treatment: 18 months at Walter Reed Behavioral Health. Medical retirement approved March 2023. The file closed. Nobody spoke. Drummond walked closer to Jessica. Sergeant Brennan, how long have you been working at this facility? 8 months, ma'am, since October. In what capacity? Contract janitorial services, ma'am. Your contractor file lists you as medical liaison consultant with TSSCI clearance. Why were you cleaning floors? Jessica's voice was steady but quiet. I requested janitorial duties specifically, ma'am. My VA counselor recommended physical work with routine structure, low stress. The facility commander approved a dual-role contract, janitorial primary, medical consultation as needed. The clearance level allowed me to access all areas for cleaning, including surgical training bays with classified equipment. You've been watching us teach your specialty for 8 months, Vance said. It wasn't a question. Jessica turned to him. You do a good job, Sergeant Major. Your students are well prepared. But, Vance prompted, the tourniquet technique demonstrated this morning. It works perfectly on mannequins, but insufficient tightness on a real casualty with vasoconstriction means the tourniquet fails. Her voice was clinical now, detached. I've seen it fail. Hoffman looked up. Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you identify yourself? Jessica met his eyes. Because I didn't want to be treated like I'm broken, Major. I wanted to work, to be useful, to be around medicine and soldiers without being responsible for anyone living or dying. Her voice cracked slightly. It was safe. Today, Drummond said. When Major Hoffman challenged you publicly, why did you accept? I didn't want to, ma'am. Jessica looked at Hayes. But Corporal Hayes was struggling. She's a good medic. She just needed confidence. And then she turned back to Hoffman. You kept mocking combat medicine like it's a game. Those protocols are written in blood, sir. Every technique demonstrated wrong is someone's life. She gestured to the mannequins. That chest seal application without burping, Staff Sergeant Phillips died because the medic before me didn't burp his seal. He went into cardiac arrest from pressure on his heart. He had 3 kids. The oldest was 7. The room was absolutely silent. The tourniquet placement? Jessica's voice was harder now. I placed one on Lance Corporal Rodriguez, 20 years old, from Omaha. He bled out because I didn't apply it fast enough. Femoral artery hemorrhage in the first 90 seconds requires sub-30-second application. I took 42 seconds. She looked at each instructor in turn. Every mistake you teach will kill someone real. Every corner you cut means someone's mother loses a child. Every time you're careless with a procedure, someone's husband doesn't come home. She pointed to her scars. These remind me that medicine in combat is about humans, not procedures. Drummond stood at attention. Sergeant Brennan. Jessica straightened, came to attention automatically. Regardless of your retirement status, you hold the rank of Sergeant First Class in the United States Army. I am senior in rank and chain of command. Drummond raised her hand in salute. Jessica's eyes widened, shocked. She returned the salute, tears flowing freely now. On behalf of this facility and the United States Army, I apologize for how you were treated today. Ma'am, that's not necessary. It is absolutely necessary, Sergeant. Vance came to attention, saluted. Captain Moss saluted. One by one, Every instructor in the room raised their hands. Finally, Hoffman stood, pale, shaking. He saluted. Jessica returned each salute. Professional, formal, broken, but still standing. Hold on. Before you see what happens next, if this story gave you chills, if you've ever hidden part of yourself to avoid judgment, hit subscribe. What comes next will restore your faith and accountability. Drop a comment. Have you ever had to hide who you really are? Drummond lowered her salute. There are 47 students outside who need to understand what they witnessed today, Sergeant, and Major Hoffman has some explaining to do. Colonel Drummond opened the training bay doors. The hallway outside was packed. 47 students stood at attention, silent. Word had spread through text messages and whispered conversations. Additional instructors had arrived, support staff, off-duty personnel who'd heard something extraordinary was happening. 73 people total, all waiting. Everyone, inside, formation around the briefing area. Drummond's command cut through the tension. They filed in silently. No phones visible. Captain Moss and the MPs had confiscated them earlier, holding them as evidence. The crowd formed a semicircle around the center of the bay where Jessica stood. Hoffman, Gillespie, and Mitchell were positioned to the side, at attention, faces varying shades of pale. Drummond addressed the formation. What happened here today represents both the best and worst of military culture. You witnessed a decorated combat veteran humiliated for doing honest work. Some of you participated actively. Others stood by passively. Both are failures. She gestured to Jessica. Sergeant First Class Brennan has agreed to share her experience. You will listen, you will learn, you will not interrupt. Sergeant? Jessica faced the formation. Her voice was quiet but steady. My name is Jessica Brennan. I was an Army combat medic for 12 years. I deployed 7 times to Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. I treated 437 casualties under fire. She paused. I lost 23. She pulled out her phone, turned it toward the formation. A list of names with dates. I remember every single one. This is who I think about at 0300 when I can't sleep. A few students shifted uncomfortably. This morning, Major Hoffman demonstrated tourniquet placement on a mannequin. Jessica walked to the training dummy. He placed it here. She indicated the position. That placement works perfectly on silicone models. Her voice hardened. On September 18, 2015, I placed a tourniquet exactly there on Lance Corporal Miguel Rodriguez. He was 20 years old, from Omaha, Nebraska. He had a girlfriend named Sarah who sent him care packages every week. She moved the tourniquet higher on the mannequin's thigh. He bled out in 7 minutes because the muscle contraction and arterial spasm in a real limb required placement here. 2 inches made the difference between his mother getting her son back or getting a folded flag. The formation was absolutely silent. Jessica moved to the chest seal demonstration. The technique shown earlier was incomplete. You have to burp the seal, lift the edge to release trapped air. If you don't, you create tension pneumothorax, air trapped with no outlet. She demonstrated the proper technique. Staff Sergeant James Phillips died because the medic before me didn't burp his chest seal. He went into cardiac arrest from pressure on his heart. Phillips had 3 kids. The oldest was 7. Her name was Emma, same as Corporal Hayes. Hayes was crying openly now. You're learning on mannequins. That's appropriate. That's safe. But understand, every technique you learn wrong will kill someone real. Jessica's voice carried across the bay. Every time you cut corners, someone's mother loses a child. Every time you're careless, someone's husband doesn't come home. She pointed to her scars. These are my reminders that combat medicine is about humans, not procedures. The soldier bleeding out in front of you isn't a training scenario. He's someone's entire world. She turned to Hoffman. Major, you asked what my call sign was. My team called me Last Stand because I wouldn't leave casualties. That nickname cost me my career, my mental health, and 12 years of watching soldiers die. But I'd make the same choices again." Her eyes locked on his. "Would you?" Hoffman opened his mouth, closed it. "No." Words came. "I'm not looking for an apology," Jessica continued. "I'm asking if you understand what you're training these students for. Are you preparing them for PowerPoint slides, or are you preparing them to hold someone's chest together while waiting for evacuation?" Drummond stepped forward. Major Hoffman, front and center. Hoffman moved mechanically, stood at attention before his commander. "Your conduct today violated Article 92 of the UCMJ, failure to obey lawful regulations regarding treatment of contractors. Article 93, cruelty and maltreatment, and base harassment policies." Drummond's voice was ice. "Effective immediately, you are suspended from instruction duties pending formal investigation." Hoffman's face went completely white. "You will undergo mandatory training on professional conduct and respect. Additionally, you will complete 40 hours of service work in the base hospital emergency room. You'll see what Sergeant Brennan saw. Maybe you'll understand what you mocked." "Yes, ma'am." Hoffman's voice was barely audible. Staff Sergeant Gillespie, Petty Officer Mitchell, front and center. They stepped forward, moving like men walking to execution. "You enabled and participated in today's misconduct. Each of you will complete written apologies to Sergeant Brennan and 20 hours of additional training duty. You'll assist Sergeant Brennan directly if she accepts the instructor position I'm about to offer her." Both men stiffened. "Yes, ma'am." Drummond turned to Jessica. "These men have requested permission to address you, Sergeant." Jessica nodded once. Hoffman spoke first, words coming slowly. "Sergeant Brennan, I have no excuse. I let my ego and insecurity drive me to hurt someone who deserved respect. I see training scenarios every day, and I forgot they represent real people dying real deaths." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry doesn't cover it, but I am profoundly sorry." Jessica's expression didn't change. "Major, you're a competent instructor for peacetime skills, but you've never seen what happens when training fails. Learn from this. Teach these students like their lives depend on it, because they do." Gillespie stepped forward. "Ma'am, I failed SOC once because I couldn't handle the pressure. I saw you working and I took out my frustration on someone I thought couldn't defend herself. That's cowardice. I'm ashamed. Staff Sergeant, you failed because the course is designed to break you. That's the point. It finds your limits. Failure means you're human." Jessica's voice was gentler now. "What matters is if you learn from it." Mitchell was last. "Sergeant, I made jokes about trauma care because I've never actually used it in combat. I'm a fleet medic. I treat shipboard emergencies and training injuries. I have no business mocking someone who's done it under fire. Petty officer, there's honor in all medical service. Fleet medics save lives too." Jessica met his eyes. "But don't mistake classroom knowledge for combat experience. Respect the difference." Corporal Hayes raised her hand. "Ma'am, permission to speak?" Drummond nodded. "Sergeant Brennan, you helped me today when you didn't have to. When I was struggling, you demonstrated the correct technique through your cleaning supplies. I noticed. I learned. Thank you." Jessica's expression softened. "Corporal, you have good instincts. Trust them. You're going to be a great combat medic." Vance addressed the formation. "Everyone here needs to understand something. Sergeant Brennan earned her rank and her decorations in ways most of you never will. She's done more for the Army and for her fellow soldiers than most of us will do in entire careers. The fact that she's here, still serving in her own way, speaks to her character. We failed her today. Don't fail the next veteran you meet." One student raised his hand tentatively. "Sergeant Brennan, what should we have done differently? When you saw someone being mistreated, you should have spoken up. Several of you looked uncomfortable. You knew it was wrong. But you stayed silent because it was easier. Jessica's voice carried weight. In combat, silence kills. Speak up when you see injustice. That's leadership. Another student stepped forward. Young, maybe 22. Ma'am, my brother served in Kandahar in 2015. He said a female medic saved his life. Gunshot wound to the shoulder. He never got her name. Jessica's eyes widened. What's your brother's name? Specialist Marcus Jennings. Jessica's face transformed. I remember Marcus. Tough kid. Good soldier. How is he? The student's voice broke. He's alive because of you, ma'am. He has 2 kids now. Twin girls. Jessica's composure cracked. The student stepped forward, and they embraced briefly. Professional, but human. Drummond let the moment breathe. Then, formation, attention. 73 people snapped to attention. Hand salute. Every person in the room saluted Jessica. She stood alone in the center, surrounded by respect she'd never asked for. She returned the salute, tears streaming freely. 5 seconds. An eternity. Ready? 2. Salutes dropped. Dismissed. Return. And to your duties. The formation dispersed quietly. Students approached Jessica to shake her hand, thank her, apologize. She received each one with grace. Hoffman approached last. Sergeant, may I ask one question? Go ahead. Why didn't you destroy us? You could have ended our careers. Jessica looked at him for a long moment. Major, I didn't join the army to destroy people. I joined to save them. You made mistakes, but you're not evil. You're human. Everyone deserves a chance to learn. She paused. That's what I learned from every casualty I couldn't save. Life is too short for unnecessary cruelty. Hoffman nodded, unable to speak. He saluted again, then left. The bay emptied until only Drummond and Jessica remained. Sergeant Brennan, I'm offering you a position. Senior medical instructor. Civilian contract, your own terms. Not as a soldier, as a teacher. Jessica looked around the empty bay. The mannequins, the equipment, the space where she'd worked invisibly for 8 months. Ma'am, if I accept, I have conditions. Drummond studied Jessica carefully. Name your conditions. I teach my way. Real scenarios, real consequences discussed. No sanitized versions. Jessica's voice was firm. Students need to understand what they're signing up for. Agreed. And I still want to clean. Drummond's eyebrows rose. Explain. The work helps me, ma'am. I need the routine, the physical structure. It grounds me. Jessica looked at the floor buffer in the corner. I'll teach 2 days a week. The rest of the time, I clean. Take it or leave it. A small smile crossed Drummond's face. Deal. Report Monday at 0700 to discuss curriculum. Until then, you're off duty. That's an order you can't refuse. Yes, ma'am. Drummond left. Jessica stood alone in the empty training bay. The silence was heavy. She walked to the mannequin where she demonstrated the chest seal, ran her hand over the synthetic skin. This one's for you, Phillips, she whispered. And Rodriguez. And Walsh. All 23 of you. She picked up her cleaning supplies, started wiping down the equipment stations methodically. The familiar routine calmed her shaking hands. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. This is Corporal Hayes. Got your number from admin. Thank you for today. You gave me my confidence back. Jessica typed back. You already had it. You just needed permission to trust yourself. Another text, this one from Vance. Sergeant, if you ever need to talk to someone who's been there, my door is open. 27 years of ghosts here. I know the weight. Jessica stared at the message for a long moment. Typed, thank you, Sergeant Major. I might take you up on that. She finished cleaning as the sun set through the bay windows. The facility grew quiet around her. Most personnel had gone home. She was locking up her equipment cart when footsteps echoed behind her. Hoffman stood in the doorway. Out of uniform now, civilian clothes. He looked 10 years older than he had that morning. I'm not here to make excuses, he said quietly. I just wanted you to know I requested the hospital assignment to start tomorrow, not waiting for it to be mandated. I need to see what you saw. Jessica nodded. It won't be easy, Major. Good.
It shouldn't be. He hesitated. My first deployment, we never took serious casualties. A few training injuries, one vehicle accident. I came home thinking I understood combat medicine because I'd read the manuals. His voice was raw. Today, you showed me I don't understand anything. You understand theory. That's important too. But theory and practice are different worlds. The mannequins don't scream. They don't beg you to save them. They don't have mothers' phone numbers in their pockets. Hoffman nodded slowly. What was it like? The 43 minutes. Jessica was quiet for a long moment. It was like being in a tunnel. Everything narrowed to the casualty in front of me. The gunfire was background noise. The explosions were just timers telling me I was running out of seconds. She looked at her scarred hands. Walsh was the worst. His chest was open on the ground. I could see his heart struggling. I put my hands inside him and squeezed. 17 minutes. My arms went numb after 8, but I couldn't stop. Did he make it? He made it to Germany, survived surgery. He's a high school teacher now in Kansas, sends me Christmas cards. A ghost of a smile. But Rodriguez and Phillips didn't, and I see their faces every night at 3 in the morning. How do you live with it? You don't live with it. You live around it. You find ways to make their deaths mean something. You teach the next generation to be faster, better, smarter than you were. Jessica's voice was steady. You turn your failures into lessons so someone else's soldier comes home. Hoffman wiped his eyes. I'll do better, I promise. I know you will, Major. That's why I didn't want your career destroyed. You're a good instructor who needed a hard lesson. Now you've had it. He left without saluting. It would have felt performative. Instead, he just nodded, acted with respect, and walked away. Jessica finished locking up, headed to her car. The parking lot was nearly empty. She sat in the driver's seat, engine off, staring at nothing. Her hands found her phone. She scrolled to the list. 23 names. She did this most nights. Read them aloud like a prayer. Rodriguez, Miguel. Phillips, James. Walsh, Daniel. He made it, Danny. You made it. Her voice cracked. Patterson, Kyle. Jenkins, Robert. Chen. She went through all 23. It took 6 minutes. When she finished, she sat in silence for another 5 minutes. Then she started the car and drove to her small apartment 15 minutes off base. The apartment was sparse, functional. 1 bedroom, basic furniture, nothing on the walls except a single photo. Her in uniform, surrounded by her medical team, all of them smiling. Taken 3 weeks before the Kandahar attack. 4 of the people in that photo were dead now. She made dinner mechanically. Grilled chicken, vegetables, rice. Ate without tasting it. Took her medications, 3 different prescriptions for PTSD, depression, anxiety. The orange bottles lined up on the counter like soldiers. Her phone buzzed again. This time a number she didn't recognize, with a 202 area code, Washington, D.C. The text read, Sergeant Brennan, this is Colonel Mitchell from U.S. SOC Personnel Command. Colonel Drummond informed us of today's events. We'd like to discuss your potential involvement in a new program. Are you available for a call tomorrow? Jessica stared at the message. U.S. SOC, United States Army Special Operations Command. Her old world reaching out. She'd spent 8 months hiding from that world. She typed, what kind of program? Response came immediately. PTSD to Purpose Initiative. Helping retired combat veterans find meaningful post-service roles using their experience to train active duty. You'd be perfect for curriculum development. Can explain more tomorrow if you're interested. Jessica set the phone down, walked to the window. Her apartment overlooked a small park. A couple walked their dog. Kids played on swings. Normal life. the kind of life she'd protected for 12 years but never really lived. She picked up the phone again, typed, "I'm interested. Available after 1600 tomorrow." The response was immediate. "Excellent. I'll call at 1630. Thank you for your service, Sergeant, and thank you for still serving." Jessica sat on her couch, turned on the TV without watching it. Her mind was elsewhere, in Kandahar, in that compound. The smell of burning metal and blood, the sound
And of Walsh's labored breathing, the weight of responsibility for 8 lives. She'd carried that weight for 9 years. It had broken her. But maybe Drummond was right. Maybe broken didn't mean useless. Maybe the cracks were where the light got through. Her phone buzzed one more time. A text from a number saved as Danny Walsh, the one who made it. "Hey Doc, my wife just told me she saw a video online before it got taken down. Some training facility? Was that you? Are you okay?" Jessica smiled despite herself. Danny checked on her more than she checked on him. Roles reversed. She typed, "It was me. I'm okay. How are the kids?" "Growing like weeds. Emma starts kindergarten next month. She wants to be a doctor like the lady who saved her daddy." Jessica's vision blurred. She typed, "She's going to be amazing. Give her a hug from me." "Will do, Doc. Proud of you. Whatever happened today, I'm proud of you." Jessica set the phone down, looked at the photo on her wall, at the faces of people who trusted her, some who died, some who'd lived, all of them part of her. She stood, walked to the bathroom, looked at herself in the mirror. 34 years old, scarred, broken in places that wouldn't heal, but still standing. "You survived," she told her reflection. "Now figure out what that means." She brushed her teeth, took her evening medications, set her alarm for 0530. Old habits. Even retired, her body waked at dawn. In bed, she reached for the worn book on her nightstand. Not a novel, a field manual. TC 4-02.1 Army Medical Treatment. She'd read it hundreds of times. The familiar words were comfort, structure, purpose. She fell asleep with the manual on her chest, dreamed, as always, of the compound. But tonight was different. Tonight, in the dream, Rodriguez and Phillips were standing, whole, smiling. "We're proud of you too, Doc," Rodriguez said. "Keep going." She woke at 3 in the morning, usual time. But instead of the panic, instead of the crushing guilt, she felt something different. Purpose. She got up, made coffee, sat at her small kitchen table and started writing. A curriculum, teaching plans, real scenarios based on real casualties. Lessons written in blood so the next generation wouldn't have to learn them the same way. By dawn, she had 12 pages of notes. A framework for teaching combat medicine the way it should be taught. Honest, raw, human. Her phone alarm went off at 0530. She was already dressed, already ready. Monday was 2 days away. She had a training bay to clean and a new purpose. To build. For the first time in 9 years, Jessica Brennan felt like herself again. Broken, yes, but whole enough to help others. And that was enough. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. Jessica entered the training facility at 0600, an hour before her scheduled meeting with Colonel Drummond. The building was quiet. She unlocked the medical bay with her contractor key, they hadn't revoked it, and began her routine. Floor buffer, equipment wipe down, supply inventory. The familiar motion steadied her breathing. This was meditation. This was therapy. She was organizing airway kits when Corporal Hayes entered, also early. The younger woman stopped in the doorway, uncertain. "Permission to enter, Sergeant?" Jessica looked up. "You don't need permission, Hayes, and when I'm cleaning, just call me Jessica." Hayes approached slowly. "I wanted to thank you again. What you said Friday about trusting my instincts, I've been thinking about it all weekend. Your instincts are good. You second-guess yourself too much." Jessica continued organizing.
That comes from being told you're wrong when you're actually right. Hoffman did that to you. He apologized, sent an email Saturday night. Hayes pulled out her phone, showed the message. 3 paragraphs of genuine contrition. He starts his hospital rotation today. Good. He'll learn. Jessica sealed the equipment cabinet. You here for extra practice? If you have time, I want to nail that cricothyrotomy procedure. I keep hesitating on the incision. Jessica checked her watch. 40 minutes until her meeting. Let's do it. They spent the next half hour on the procedure. Jessica demonstrated on a training mannequin, explaining each step with clinical precision but human context. The hesitation you feel, that's normal. You're about to cut into someone's throat. But hesitation kills faster than a bad incision. Commit to the movement. Hayes practiced 3 times. The 3rd attempt was flawless. That's it. That's the one that saves a life. Jessica reset the mannequin. Now do it again. Muscle memory requires 50 repetitions minimum. At 0650, Drummond entered. She observed the last practice run without interrupting. Corporal Hayes, excellent technique. Dismissed. Hayes snapped to attention, left quickly. Drummond gestured to the office area. Let's talk. They sat in the small instructor office overlooking the training bay. Drummond had coffee waiting, 2 cups. I've been reviewing your service record all weekend, your medical innovations, your survival rates, your teaching methods from your time as a team medic. Drummond slid a folder across the desk. USOC contacted me. They want you for their new initiative. Colonel Mitchell called me Friday night. We spoke Saturday afternoon. And? I'm interested, but I want to start here. Build the curriculum locally, test it with real students, prove the concept works. Jessica opened the folder. Inside were her notes from Saturday night, printed and formatted. How did you get these? You emailed them to yourself from your personal account. Your personal email was listed in your contractor file. I hope you don't mind. I had my admin print them. Drugan smiled. These are excellent, Sergeant. This is exactly what we need. It's raw, needs refinement. It's honest. That's more important than polished. Drummond leaned forward. I'm authorizing you to redesign the advanced TCCC curriculum. You'll work with Vance and the other senior instructors. Major Hoffman, when he returns from his hospital rotation, will assist you. Jessica nodded slowly. What about Gillespie and Mitchell? They'll complete their remediation hours under your direct supervision. You'll determine when they've learned enough to return to regular duties. That's a lot of authority for a contractor. You're not just a contractor. You're the most experienced combat medic on this base, possibly in the entire special operations community. Drummond's voice was firm. I'm also authorizing a GS-12 pay grade. That's federal civilian employee level, above standard contractor rates. And I'm providing you an office. You need space to work that isn't a janitor's closet. Jessica was quiet for a moment. I still want to clean, ma'am. I know. Your conditions are approved. 2 days teaching, rest of the week you maintain your janitorial duties if you choose. But, Jessica, Drummond used her first name deliberately. Don't hide behind that mop forever. You have too much to give. I'm not hiding, I'm healing. Fair enough. Drummond stood. Your first class is Wednesday. 30 students, mixed services. Topic of your choice. Show them what combat medicine really looks like. They shook hands. Jessica left the office feeling the weight of new responsibility. Different from the weight of casualties, but heavy nonetheless. She spent Monday and Tuesday preparing, wrote lesson plans, created scenarios based on real casualties, changing names but keeping details accurate. Each scenario had a purpose, a lesson written in someone's blood. Wednesday arrived. 0700, 30 students. Filed into the training bay. Jessica stood at the front in civilian contractor clothes, cargo pants, facility polo shirt, not trying to look military, not hiding her scars anymore. Good morning. I'm Jessica Brennan. I'm a retired Army combat medic. For the next 3 hours, we're going to discuss trauma care, but we're doing it my way. She walked to 5 mannequins she'd arranged in specific patterns. These aren't just training dummies. Each one represents a real casualty I treated,
I'm going to tell you their stories, their real names, their ages, their families. Then you're going to triage them, knowing they were real people." She pointed to the first mannequin. "This is Corporal Daniel Walsh, 20 years old, shrapnel through the chest from VBID attack. His mother's name is Patricia. He was engaged to his high school sweetheart, Amanda. He wanted to be a teacher." Students shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't standard training protocol. Uncomfortable? Good. He was real. Treat him that way. Jessica moved to the second mannequin. "This is Staff Sergeant James Phillips, 29 years old, tension pneumothorax from blast injury. He had 3 kids, Emma, 7, Jacob, 5, Michael, 3. He coached Little League." She went through all 5. Real names, real stories, real families. By the third casualty, 2 students were crying. "Now, triage them. You have 8 minutes. Go." The students moved with urgency, different energy than standard training. These weren't abstract scenarios anymore. These were humans. Jessica watched, evaluated, corrected technique gently but firmly. When they finished, she gathered them. Walsh survived. He's a teacher in Kansas now. Phillips died during evacuation. The medic before me didn't burp his chest seal properly. Rodriguez died from femoral hemorrhage. I wasn't fast enough with the tourniquet. Patterson died from blast injuries too severe to survive even with perfect care. Chen survived, but lost his leg. She let that sit. 3 out of 5 lived because someone did their job correctly under impossible circumstances. 2 died because of mistakes or impossible odds. That's combat medicine. You won't save everyone, but you'll save the ones you can if you train like their lives depend on it. The class continued for 3 hours, intensive, exhausting, real. Afterward, students approached her individually. Questions, thanks, some sharing their own fears about deployment. One student, 22 years old, said, "My recruiter told me combat medic was a safe job. Behind the lines, low danger." Jessica looked. Gillespie looked at him seriously. "Combat medic has one of the highest casualty rates in the military. You run toward gunfire when everyone else takes cover. You expose yourself to danger to reach wounded. There is nothing safe about this job." She paused. "But there's everything honorable about it." The student nodded, looking both terrified and determined. Over the next 2 weeks, Jessica taught 6 more classes. Word spread. Her sessions filled up immediately. Students requested her specifically. Major Hoffman completed his 40-hour hospital rotation. He entered the training bay looking like he'd aged 5 years. He found Jessica cleaning equipment after a class. "I saw things." His voice was hollow. "A soldier came in, IED blast. Both legs gone above the knee. He was 23, kept asking for his mom." Jessica continued wiping down the mannequin. "Did he make it?" "Yes, thanks to the ER team, but it took 2 hours of surgery. I watched the whole thing." Hoffman sat heavily. The controlled chaos, the blood, the smell, the way everyone moved with purpose because seconds mattered. He looked at her. "That's what you did. 7 deployments of that. That's what we all do. Medics, corpsmen, PJs, we hold the line between life and death." Jessica set down her cloth. "Did it help, seeing it real?" "It terrified me, but yes, I understand now. I'll never teach the same way again." "Good. You ready to assist with my next class?" Hoffman straightened. "Yes, Sergeant. What do you need?" They worked together for the next month. Hoffman absorbed everything, asked questions, admitted gaps in his knowledge. His arrogance had been replaced with humility and hunger to learn. Gillespie and Mitchell completed their remediation hours. Both approached Jessica on a Friday afternoon. "We wanted to thank you," Mitchell said, "for not destroying us, for teaching us instead. I didn't do it for you. I did it for your future patients.
Jessica's voice was firm but not unkind. "You're both good medics. You just needed perspective." Gillespie added, "I'm retaking SOCM selection next quarter. Using everything you taught me, I won't fail this time." "You might. The course is designed to break people. But if you do fail, you'll know you gave everything." Jessica met his eyes. "That's all anyone can ask." They left. Jessica finished her cleaning routine. The sun was setting through the bay windows. She was alone with her thoughts and her mannequins. Her phone buzzed. Text from Danny Walsh. Emma's first day of kindergarten. She told her teacher she wants to save people.
Like her hero. Sending you the photo. The image showed a little girl in a princess dress holding a toy medical kit, smiling. Jessica saved the photo, added it to a folder on her phone labeled Reasons to Keep Going. 23 names on her list of losses, but hundreds of names on her list of saves. Soldiers living full lives because she'd been fast enough, skilled enough, determined enough. The weight would never fully lift. The ghosts would never fully leave. But she was learning to carry them differently. Not as anchors, but as purpose. She locked up the facility, drove home, made dinner, took her medications, read her field manual. At 0300, she woke from the usual nightmare. But this time, she got up, made coffee, and wrote lesson plans instead of dwelling in the dark. By dawn, she had a new curriculum module complete, teaching triage through real case studies, preparing the next generation to make impossible choices with wisdom earned through her pain. Broken, yes, but useful. Still serving, still saving lives through teaching. And that was enough. 2 months after that confrontation in the training bay, Jessica arrived at the facility at 0530. November cold bit through her jacket. The sun hadn't risen yet. She preferred these quiet hours before the base fully woke. She unlocked the medical bay, flipped on lights. Her dual badge hung around her neck now, contractor/senior medical instructor. She'd stopped trying to hide either role. The floor buffer sat in its usual corner. She fired it up, began the familiar routine. Cleaning still grounded her. The physical work, the repetition, the visible progress from dirty to clean. It was meditation that her therapist approved of. She was halfway through the main bay when students began arriving, early ones, the dedicated ones. They saw her cleaning and no longer looked confused. This was just who Sergeant Brennan was. "Morning, Sergeant," a student called out. "Morning, Lopez. Ready for today's scenario?" "Yes, ma'am. Nervous, though." Jessica finished her section, switched off the buffer. Nervous means you care. Overconfident gets people killed. I'll take nervous and careful over cocky and careless any day. Lopez smiled, reassured. Headed to the changing area to training here. By 0630, 30 students had assembled. Jessica stood at the front, no longer in coveralls. She wore the facility instructor polo now, cargo pants, boots. Professional, but approachable. "Today, we're doing mass casualty triage, but we're doing it my way." She gestured to 5 mannequins arranged in a semicircle. "I'm going to tell you a story about each casualty. Real people I treated. You're going to triage them knowing they were real. Then we'll discuss what worked and what I'd do differently." This was her method now, teaching through story, through humanity. The students had stopped complaining about the emotional weight. They understood that weight was the point. She pointed to the first mannequin. "This is Corporal Daniel Walsh, 20 years old, September 18, 2015. Shrapnel through his chest from a vehicle-borne IED. His heart was struggling. I performed an emergency thoracotomy in the open under fire. Kept his heart beating manually for 17 minutes. The students were silent, attentive. Your task, assess him, determine his priority category, explain your treatment plan." She moved to the next mannequin. "This is Staff Sergeant James Phillips. Tension pneumothorax. The medic before me didn't burp his chest seal. He arrested 3 minutes from the hospital." She went through all 5, then stepped back. "Begin."
The students moved with practiced efficiency. 2 months of training under Jessica had changed them. They touched the mannequins differently now, talked to them, treated them like humans, not equipment. Major Hoffman stood at the edge of the bay, observing. He was assisting with instruction now, but in a support role. He'd learned his place. He approached Jessica quietly. "They're good, better than any class I've trained. They're learning differently. Context before procedure. Humanity before protocol." Jessica watched a student correctly identify and treat a tension pneumothorax. When they understand the why behind the what, they remember it. Hoffman nodded. "I finished my remediation hours, but I requested to stay in the hospital rotation. 2 shifts a week, volunteering." Jessica turned to him, surprised. "Why?" "Because I need the reminder. I need to see real trauma, smell real blood, hear real fear. Otherwise, I'll slip back into treating this like a game." His voice was quiet. "You gave me a gift that day. You showed me who I was becoming. I won't waste it." That takes courage, Major. Growth always does. They watched the students complete their triage. Perfect execution. Jessica called them together for debrief. Walsh survived. He's a high school teacher in Kansas, has a wife, and stays in touch with me. Phillips died. I see his daughter Emma in every young medic I train, hoping one of you will be fast enough to save the next Phillips. She let the weight, 8, settle. You can't save everyone, but you can save the ones you're trained to save. That's why we do this work. After class, Corporal Hayes approached. "Sergeant, I got my deployment orders. Afghanistan, forward surgical team. I ship out in 6 weeks. Jessica felt the familiar clutch in her chest, sending another young medic into the fire. But Hayes was ready. "You're prepared. Trust your training. Trust your instincts." "Will you write me while I'm deployed? I'd like to know you're here when I get back." "Of course." And Hayes, Jessica handed her a small notebook. "Write down every casualty you treat, names, dates, outcomes, good and bad. It helps later when you're processing everything." Hayes took the notebook, eyes shining. "Thank you for everything, Sergeant." They embraced briefly, professional but genuine. That evening, Jessica sat in her apartment. 2 months had brought changes. The walls weren't bare anymore. Photos hung now. Her team from Kandahar, Danny Walsh's daughter in her kindergarten photo, a letter from Rodriguez's mother thanking her for trying. Her phone rang. Colonel Mitchell from U.S. OSOC. "Sergeant Brennan, I wanted to update you. The PTSD to Purpose initiative has been approved for full funding. We're ready to expand. Would you be willing to travel to other bases, help establish programs there?" Jessica looked around her small apartment. The safety she'd built here, the routine that kept her stable. Leaving would mean disruption, but it would also mean helping more veterans find purpose after trauma. How much travel? 1 week per month. Your choice of basis. You'd maintain your position at Fort Bragg as home station. "I need to think about it." "Of course. Take your time. But Jessica, what you're doing matters. We're hearing from bases across the country requesting your curriculum. You're changing how we teach combat medicine." After the call, Jessica walked to her window. The park below was empty, November darkness settling in. She thought about her 23, about the hundreds she'd saved, about the students she was training now who would save hundreds more. Her phone buzzed. Text from Vance. "Veteran support group tonight, Base Chapel, 1800 hours. Still welcome if you want to come." She'd been avoiding the group for 2 months, afraid of the emotions, the shared trauma, the vulnerability. But maybe it was time. She texted back, "I'll be there." At 17:45, she drove back to base, found the chapel. 12 people sat in a circle. Mixed ages, services, eras, all carrying invisible wounds. Vance gestured to an empty chair. "Glad you came." The meeting began simply. Introductions, check-ins, shared struggles. When it reached Jessica, she spoke quietly. "I'm Jessica, Army medic, retired 2 years ago. I lost 23 people I tried to save. I remember all their names. Some days are harder than others. Some days I still see their faces. But I'm learning that carrying them doesn't mean being crushed by them. A Vietnam-era medic across the circle nodded. 50 years later, I still see mine. But I taught emergency medicine for 30 years after I got out. Saved thousands because of what my casualties taught me. They're still saving lives through me. The meeting lasted 90 minutes. Jessica left feeling lighter. Not healed, she'd never be fully healed, but less alone. She drove home, made dinner, took her medications. At 0300, she woke from the nightmare. But instead of panic, she did what she'd trained herself to do. She got up, made coffee, opened her laptop. She drafted an email to Colonel Mitchell. I'll take the USAOC position, 1 week per month. I want to help other veterans find purpose. Let's start in January. She sent it, felt the fear and the excitement in equal measure. By 0530, she was back at the facility, unlocking the bay, starting the floor buffer. The familiar routine. A student arrived early, saw her cleaning. "Sergeant, you don't have to do that. We have janitorial staff." Jessica smiled. "I know, but this grounds me, reminds me why I'm here. Plus, cleaning is honest work. Nothing wrong with honest work." The student hesitated. "Can I help?" "Sure, grab a cloth." They cleaned together in comfortable silence. The student, young and nervous about upcoming deployment. The sergeant, scarred and healing, but still serving. When the bay was clean, Jessica stood back, surveyed the space. Training mannequins ready, equipment organized, everything prepared for another day of turning students into combat medics who would save real lives. Her phone showed a photo notification. Danny Walsh had sent a new picture. Emma, dressed as a doctor for Halloween. The caption read, "She says she's going to be like Doc Brennan when she grows up." Jessica saved the photo, added it to her Reasons to Keep Going folder. The folder had 43 items now, growing. She looked at the training bay, her domain now, earned through pain and perseverance. This was where she'd been humiliated. This was where she'd been revealed. This was where she'd found purpose again. The students filed in. 30 faces, eager and nervous. She stood at the front, no longer invisible, no longer hiding. "Before we begin, I want to tell you why I teach the way I do." Her voice carried across the bay. 8 months ago, I was cleaning this room, invisible, broken, hiding from who I used to be. Someone challenged me, forced me to show who I really was. She gestured around the room. That moment saved my life. Not because I proved myself to them, because I proved to myself that I still had something to give. She met each student's eyes. Combat medicine isn't about being a hero. It's about being present. It's about not giving up when everything says the casualty is gone. It's about fighting for every life because each one matters infinitely. She picked up a tourniquet. Most of you will never deploy to combat. I hope you never have to use these skills for real. But if you do, remember this. The person in front of you is someone's entire world. Treat them like they're yours. The class began. Jessica taught with authority earned through fire, through loss, through 23 names she'd never forget, and hundreds she'd managed to save. At the end of the day, after the students left, after she'd cleaned the equipment and locked up, she stood alone in the empty bay. "I'm still here," she said to the ghosts, to Rodriguez and Phillips and all the others. Still fighting, still saving lives through teaching. I hope that makes you proud. The silence answered her, but it felt less heavy now, more peaceful. She turned off the lights, locked the door, drove home under November stars. Tomorrow, she'd wake at 0530. She'd clean, she'd teach, she'd remember, she'd heal a little more. Broken, yes, always would be, but whole enough to help others find their way through darkness. And in the end, that was more than enough. That was purpose. That was service. That was how you honored the ones you couldn't save, by making sure their lessons saved others. Jessica Brennan, Sergeant First Class, retired but still serving, drove into the night carrying her ghosts with grace and her purpose with pride. The instructor who was questioned about her resilience had shown them all what true resilience looked like. Not the absence of breaking, but the courage to rebuild, again and again, for as long as it took. And she would keep rebuilding, keep teaching, keep serving. Because that's what combat medics do. They don't quit. They don't surrender. They hold the line between life and death, in war and in peace, until their last breath. And Jessica Brennan had plenty of fight left.